Any apologies for absence? The apologies that I have received are from Councillor David Williams and also from the co-opted member Neil Roberts. Thank you. And we'll now move forward. We need to mention declarations of interest. As a governor of Ysgol y Castell Rhydlan, I have an interest to declare. Anybody else?
Well, yes, I would say I'm a governor of Prestatyn High School, if that needs to be recorded.
And bore da pawb, I'm a governor at Ysgol Tir Morfa.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Peter, governor at VP School, St Asaph.
Wow. Else?
I'm a parent and governor. Councillor Hywel Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
I've got no urgent matters.
Your attention. Diolch yn fawr. Awn ni mlaen I...
We'll move on to, oh no, I've left something out. Appointment of Vice Chair.
I will propose Councillor Hugh Irving.
I'll second that.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Bob. Thank you very much. Any other proposal? No, pawb yn distaw. Everybody's quiet. Are you willing to accept this wonderful job, Councillor Hugh Irving?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Happy to support you as I've done previously, yes.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. You work well together. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Hugh. Right, cofnodion.
Right, minutes of the last meeting. Can anybody propose that they're correct?
Thank you, Peter. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Seconded by Bob Murray. Diolch yn fawr. We will go through them now, please. Page 9. Are you all in agreement that they are correct to begin with?
Yep.
All happy? They've been proposed correct and everyone is happy. Diolch yn fawr. Dudalen now.
Page 9.
Dig.
Page 10.
Anything there that you want to pick out? No. Library service, standards and performance. Dudalen un ar ddeg.
Page 11.
Rhywbeth chi eisiau godi yma?
Is there anything you want to raise there? No. Page 12.
3, 2020-21. Gobeithio.
I'll read one thing here.
There will be a rapid increase of building and housing performing in the near future. Is this correct? Has this happened? Do you think it will be happening, Rhian?
Well, the plan is on today's agenda, so you may want to raise that question at
Thank
that
you.
time.
There's another part of housing there. I'll leave that for later on then. And then corporate risk register review.
Page 14, 15.
That was quick, wasn't it? Da hwnna'n sydyn iawn. Okay. Agenda
Agenda item number 6. We welcome here today Councillor Hugh Roberts.
Head of Education and Children's Service. Hefyd.
And also Geraint Davis. He is here as the temporary head of education in Denbighshire. A warm welcome to you both. You can make your presentations. Who represents GWE? Thank you, Hugh. Good morning, all.
I bring a small team with me today.
Join the meeting.
Arwel's already introduced Geraint. I've got Mair and Jackie there as well from GWE. What I want to do today is I've asked Mair and Jackie just to come and answer questions rather than give you a long presentation, because this subject area, if I'm being realistic, could take us all day, folks. It is huge. So what I'm trying to do today really is give you some reassurances that all the efforts that have been made to support the schools in implementing the new curriculum, and to allow you as a committee the opportunity to look at what we've done, monitor, how we're monitoring what we're implementing, and just give a little bit of scrutiny around that really. I think on the whole, it's put a huge amount of work being put into this area, and a lot of this work was done pre-COVID pandemic. And at that time we were 90% on track to deliver the new curriculum. Then obviously COVID hit, so therefore we've had to reevaluate and do some tap dancing in certain areas to get things back on track, because whilst this was going on, you have to remember that there was a lot of teachers having to adjust to the COVID way of delivery as well, and to think of somebody who has maybe been in a classroom for 25 years and used chalkboards and then suddenly gone to whiteboards and then suddenly have just mastered the laptop on the screen in the room, then to have to deliver 5 lessons a day through Zoom has been a massive change and impact for some of these people that we have working for us. So this is a step change, and a step change that we believe for the good. So what we're looking at really, well, the curriculum is for Wales, which is a big change. It provides a positive way forward from what we've learned from the last 12 months and how we take teaching to the next level. The curriculum, teaching, learning and assessment should flow from 4 clear purposes agreed nationally, so we're all working towards the same goal but pursued locally. Those purposes should really be that all of our young people are ambitious and capable learners, they're enterprising and creative contributors, ethical and informed citizens, and confident individuals. So I think those are the 4 key areas that this works through. And that the young people learning should build progressively towards these 4 purposes across their time in education, from when they enter the system to when they come out. And the teachers and schools should have greater freedom then to realise the purposes and ways that they can meet the needs and characteristics of these children and the communities they serve. Just to illustrate, a community like Ruthin can be very different to a community in Rhyl or Prestatyn or wherever, so there are vast differences. So, and I remember there's a little boy that I know who went to a school which was driven, everything was by paper and writing. Didn't engage him at all. He moved schools, he was a farmer's son, and all his education was around tractors and farming. He stepped up so much in 4 months, it was a different game, So it's about recognising what characteristics and what works for the children. So there is an attachment. I think it's what's it called there? Is it the last one? Is it the guide to curriculum? Is it?
There is one of the attachments is an easy read to the new curriculum. In quite an easy to read document rather than possibly of the main document. So that is in the attachment. Quite informative, really.
Is it me? Is Geraint breaking up?
Yeah, it's breaking up terribly.
Yeah, not the camera for Geraint. Basically, there's a document attached to the papers that is an easy read, because to go through the whole lot it loses me and Geraint and everybody. So we just thought we'd put that in. So just to take it through is that we worked on a school level, on a county level, on a GWE level, on cross-county level, and within Wales, and we're sharing best practice across the piece. We're sharing there's examples where there's some of our Denbighshire schools have been holding best practice for the whole of North Wales. So, there's really positive stuff being done in this, and the schools have been, they take responsibility within the senior leaders of the schools for leading the change. They've taken leadership on the new curriculum. They're developing a shared vision. They've developed the planning of the curriculum and the changes, and the method of practice of teaching, leading the paediologists. They've taken it in and they've owned it, which is really important. And their CPD and their professional learning is key to this, taking this forward. And I think, I actually was in my daughter's school yesterday. I was interviewing, and I went into one classroom in year 5 and 6, and they were all playing with Lego. And I said, well, why are the children in year 5 and 6 playing with Lego? But apparently, the children have picked the theme, and they are learning through Lego. Which, when you see a whole classroom completely silent because they're all engaged in it, it is quite a powerful thing. So using different things like arts and different things will help us engage our children, hopefully, far better. There's workshops, there's risks, there's challenges. High school is probably going to be a bigger challenge than the junior schools because of the step change. But we have to make sure that we have effectively, I suppose it's like turning all our schools into through schools is the aim here. So when they enter the bottom of the ladder at 3, that whatever we're doing consistently across all our schools will be consistent, and that at 16 that each child will get the same experience. I think that's what the driver is, so that we're not separating them. I think I've explained who we're working with by the schools. I mean, each school has a specialist. I think that's roughly a whistle-top store. Garrett, I can't see it, but do you want to come in on that?
Yes, thank you, Hugh. So obviously, I'll be quite brief to allow members the opportunity to to scrutinise, to ask the questions from the report. But basically, the curriculum is what children should learn, how they should learn it, and the reasons why they should learn it. And every child and every young person is learning in the way that's right for them. So it does give schools a degree of flexibility, and the work that's been ongoing regionally and locally with colleagues in GWE is to offer schools the support. This is a big change. This is the curriculum hasn't changed to this degree for maybe 30 years. So it is a big change, and there's 6 areas where GWE and the local authority have been supporting schools, and the first one, leading change, because this is a change management activity. Leadership is ensuring that our leaders in school have the skills required to lead this big change, to share that vision, to plan for the new curriculum, and through the professional learning offer that's available.
Sorry to come across you, Geraint. Sorry, Geraint. There's someone still coming across you who should unmute. Sorry. Mae rhywun yn dod torri'r dy draws di, mae ddrwg gen i.
I think it's Kathleen Arwell, I think.
It's Kathleen Jones.
Yeah.
Should unmute.
Mute.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to mute it now. I'm struggling in this meeting, so I hadn't realised. So I'm muting now. Beg your pardon.
Diolch, Kathleen.
And then just to go through, to make sure that we are offering the best offer to our schools. Obviously, back in April, there was a workshop to consult with the schools to ask, are you getting what you need? Are we as in GWE and local authority, are we offering what you're asking for to be able to meet that deadline for the implementation of the new curriculum? And over 300 head teachers engaged in that, over 50 from Denbighshire, which is a great number that are engaged there. And you'll see in 4.7 that the outcome of that consultative workshop was very positive, and that, you know, head teachers, and both in primary and secondary, they want to work together on this. You know, stronger together mewn undod y mae nerth, and everything like that. They want to work, you know, to maintain the momentum. It has been a challenging time, but it's also an exciting time from a curricular point of view, and also they are keen to work with the experts in the field. And one of those experts has been Professor Graham Donaldson himself, because schools have had a series of think pieces that have been written by Gwe from weekly sessions they've had with Graham Donaldson himself, that has fed into the support that schools are getting. So the big question is, will our schools be ready for the implementation of the new curriculum in September 2022? The answer is, by then, you know, they will have to be, it will become legislation, it will become law in September 2022. And, you know, the work that GWE are undertaking on the local authorities' behalf is key in supporting the schools. That support comes at a regional level, a local level, a cluster level, and also at a bespoke level for individual schools, for their individual needs. And I know there was a training session held with Rill Cluster, for example, delivered by Myra, I believe, yesterday. So, you know, it is still ongoing now, and, you know, it is monitored, it is tracked to make sure that these milestones and these deadlines will be met. So that's just a sort of a whistle-stop tour of the report and some of the appendices that have been provided. And we are more than happy, and I'm glad that Mair and Jackie are here, who live and breathe and sleep the new curriculum these days, are here. And I'm sure between us we can answer any questions hopefully that you may have. Diolch, Mr. Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i'r ddau o'ch chi, diolch i Hugh ac i Geraint. Dy gynnal ni.
Thank you both for encouraging us to read the Donaldson report. Can I start with a question? One thing that concerns me is that there is too much pressure on staff and too much pressure on governors. I can give you an example from another county where problems arise, and the education department transfers that problem on to the governors. It could be under Unite unions, for example. They pass those problems on to the governors, and governors are volunteers.
Sorry,
that's
I'm
a
getting
problem.
two people talking here. I've got Arwell talking.
Can you hear the translation?
Yeah.
Can you hear the translation?
That's better, thank you.
So that's one question. Will there be too much pressure on governors? And then the connection that you mentioned between primary and secondary schools that they feed, that has been a lifelong problem from moving forward to secondary schools. I'm glad there are clusters. And how many clusters are there in Denbighshire, so that we know that? That would be useful for us to know. Also, thirdly, there are two schools under shadow following an Eston report. How have they coped, or how are they going to cope now with the Donaldson plan that's coming into force in September 22? Those are three questions from me. Maybe you could answer those before we move on to other members of the committee. Thank you. Yes, I'll start off. Councillor Hywel Roberts. To be honest, I don't see it as a problem for governors here in Denbighshire because we don't work in that way here. There is pressure in terms of the fact that the new curriculum is coming, but the way we've put it into action, I think the support has been very strong. And the schools, in terms of clusters, are there 6 or 8 clusters? 8. It's 8 clusters in Denbighshire. What they have been doing is working together, and they've done this in terms of additional learning needs as well. So there is evidence in the system already of how the staff work. I'm not aware of any pressure on governors. But also, I must say, when I speak to people in the same position as me across North Wales, I get the feeling that the relationship between us and our schools in Denbighshire is very strong. And the way Geraint and his team have meetings every week so that any problems that emerge every week, they're sorted immediately rather than festering as they do in other counties. And as a member, a lead member, I have never been refused a meeting with the head teachers, but I know in other counties this happens. So I feel very strongly that the relationship is very strong and I can't see a problem here at all. The 2 schools with Estin, well, the support is there already and it continues. And as a county, we have seen 2 schools come out of Estin monitoring during COVID, and it's been very hard during this time. Also, one of our secondary schools, we're working with the government to provide more support there. So there are examples that we are taking this work very seriously. Who wants to answer the other question? Geraint Davis just wants to come in here now and then. Maybe Maya might mention the support to schools in category. If I could just provide assurance to members and the chair in terms of the pressure on governors. We are aware that they are volunteers and lay people, and there is a great responsibility on the shoulders of governors. And we are very grateful, obviously, for the work that is done on governing bodies in our schools. We are trying to do everything we can to protect and with the pressure on the governors. We meet with the heads weekly at 8 o'clock every Friday morning. This is a morning meeting from 8 till 9 on a Friday, and then obviously it's a two-way conversation where we present issues. Gwe, Maya and Jackie also join us, and also the schools raise questions and concerns that they have, and we then respond to those by sending any information out or any guidance or advice, or sometimes even when the schools feel that they want a clear leadership from the authority so that they can tell parents this is Denbighshire's view on a certain matter, well then we do work like that. There are some things, for example, when it comes to complaints or matters with regards to discipline, legally the responsibility must rest on the governors, and it wouldn't be appropriate for the authority to interfere that time. But I can assure you that where we can lessen the load on schools, certainly we will do that. Sometimes it's easier for us to do something once rather than for 55 schools to do it 55 times. So that is our way of thinking anyway. And also to correct myself, there are 6 clusters and the faith schools and special needs schools join with their clusters according to their location. So there's a cluster in Prestatyn, Rhyl, Denbigh, Ruthin, Edeyrnion, and the Glan Clwyd cluster, and the special needs schools join in those clusters. I knew I was right with the 6. Aldrich Roberts. As Hugh mentioned, there is additional help available to schools in a cluster, and there are 2 schools that have come out of special measures by Estyn, and there is a meeting this afternoon, for example, isn't there, Mair, with one of our schools that is getting additional supports for the general offer that everybody gets to support them to come out of this step that they're facing at the moment. You may have something to add, Mair.
Just very briefly, really, just to say, yes, especially with work schools in the category, obviously it's all about fine balance, because there is additional pressure on such schools to be Estyn ready and to be recognising progress needed against the recommendations that have been made, but they can't be left behind in this journey towards the curriculum, which is happening next September. So it's about getting that fine balance and making sure that the support that we give is agreed with the school, and it's delivered in a timely fashion, and it's made completely bespoke to the school's particular needs within its context. I think with any type of support, it's about that relationship with the schools. It's about us understanding where the schools are, what they need, and having that two-way dialogue all the time. But there is particular bespoke and additional supports going in to the schools who require it for different reasons.
Thank you, 3 of you. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts. Could I just come back in briefly? There is a meeting of the governors, Denbighshire Governors Association, that is to be held quite soon now. So I would encourage anybody who feels that they would like any additional support to raise that with us, and then obviously we would look at that request and take whatever steps that need to be taken to provide additional support. Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on these topics?
You raised a question around the schools in categories with Estyn. But just to give you a flavour of how we're working here in Denbighshire at the moment, is that we're also monitoring schools that we think that might have issues going forward as well. Mm-hmm. So we're being preventative. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, wasn't it, Gary? With one particular school, because we've already, between Gware and Denbighshire, we've already identified issues. So we're making sure that they are dealt with before they become Estyn issues, if that makes sense. So just to give you a little bit of reassurance around that, and that does include ALN, and it does include the curriculum.
That's very thorough. Diane Hugh. Any other questions should have come in now, please? I have no hands up. No.
Got my hand up, Mr. Arwell.
Oh, I didn't know, Bob. I do apologise. Over to you, Bob.
So's Ellie and so's Gwyneth.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Merrick.
Yeah.
Would you like mine first? Mr. Chair, do you want me to?
Please, Bob, move on.
Right, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Could I first thank you and the team? I know they've got a thankless job and they do a marvellous job for us. So on behalf of all, I'd just like to say thank you. My problem, and always has been, is children taught at home. What I'd like to ask is, how do we consult with them on these changes, and how do we implement them if we do it at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for your kind words. I'm sure the team will appreciate that. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Denbighshire is a really good place for children taught at home, because we're always battling, because to be able to actually have control of that, there is no legislation that supports it. Okay, so in effect, we're dependent on interaction with the carer or the parent, whoever is executing that education at home. I think we have the most intelligence on our children that are taught at home, probably one of the best in Wales. We are in touch. We work on a regular basis. And, you know, realistically, Bob, we may see more children after this period want to be educated at home. You know, because people have got, I was actually speaking to somebody yesterday where they still haven't sent their children back to school and their grades have increased from C's to A's. So, you know, because they were getting the education at home and the local authority were working with them. So I think I don't have concerns at the moment because of the way that the channels, again, we communicate. We have the best figures, I think, you know, of intelligence we have. So I think our working from home model is quite strong, but it will never be what it should be until the Welsh government, whoever they might be, I'm not making this political, you know, actually introduce a legislation that puts measures in place around homeschooling. Ger?
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, as who has said, we have got very, very rigorous processes in place to support and work with the pupils that elect to have home education. We can't enforce the new curriculum on anybody who's elected to be educated from home, so we can't force the curriculum on them. The whole point of being EHE, which is elective home educated, is that they've decided they don't want to follow the curriculum. Parents choose their curriculum when they're educated at home. The curriculum that they want to deliver with their children. So if it's blended learning, when, for example, schools are working half at home, as we have done in the past sort of 18 months due to COVID, the new curriculum would continue in a blended way in those instances. But if a parent has elected to keep their children at home to educate them, you know, it's up to the parents to decide.
Sorry, we're not.
Sorry, am I breaking up?
I've not heard a thing.
We heard it, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
It's your issue, Bob. Okay. Geraint, diolch I ti am hynna, diolch I Hugh.
Thank you, Geraint, for that. Thank you, Hugh.
We've got a timetable to follow. Over to you, Cynghorydd Ellie Chard.
And thank you for reporting. I'm actually, at the moment, I am on the SACRA and I am the chair. So my question is, Ari is going to be in the humanities strand of the new curriculum. I just want assurance that all the schools understand, and I just want to make sure that it will be there blended into history and geography and even artwork. But I'm looking forward to hearing about it and hoping that all the schools will enjoy this new
It's a very good question there. Diolch yn fawr,
Ellie.
right. Yeah, we heard it, I think. Yes, Hugh and Geraint, did you hear that question correctly?
Thank you. I must confess that's in the detail for me, and Ari isn't one of my specialist areas.
Do you want me to just to give Councillor Chad assurances? Obviously, as you said, humanities and RE, you know, religion, values, and ethics is one of the 6 areas of learning, and it sits within humanities with history, geography, business, social studies, and so on. And you know, for schools planning their curriculum, they must include the religion, values, and ethics within within that strand, that area of learning of humanities. Obviously, Jackie or Maya may have more depth there, but you know, they cannot ignore religion, for example, and Ari.
No. And recently, just a couple of weeks ago, there's some consultation documents come out for the statutory obligations that sit within this curriculum, and the consultation is open till 16th of July. And one of them is on how religious education should look within the new curriculum. So it's very much safeguarded and protected, if you like, and running through the whole curriculum there.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it's been
you.
consulted. It's been consulted with at the moment, and SACRA will be
Chair, the voices keep fading in and out. Can anything be done about it?
Pardon, Andrew, I didn't hear that.
The voices keep fading in and out. Can
Well,
anything be done about it?
I don't know if the staff can help you in any way.
Can all members make sure that they're wearing the headsets initially, because that helps. It stops the fading in and out. So because that causes voices to fade if you're not wearing your headsets, which you've got the microphones on them as well. If there is a problem, the next suggestion is that you turn your videos off. The person who's speaking turns their videos off, then that will use less bandwidth, which means that the voices will come over stronger.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Andrew, a diolch i Rhian. And two very good questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Rhian?
Murray and Councillor Ellie Chard. And now we've got Councillor Martin Holland who would like to ask a question. Croeso, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can't find the microphone to unmute then. I've read this report through yesterday, and it is certainly a very meaty report. It goes really from the sublime to the ridiculous in some ways, because you have that very easy report at the beginning, and then pages and pages of what I can only call education speak. But the proof will be in the pudding. There's a lot of good stuff in this, but the proof will be in the pudding. Can I just ask a couple of confirmation things, please? Am I right in saying, did I read that the main rollout of this in Denbighshire will be in September 2022, or have we already started that? The training for staff is going to be critical in all of this, and are we happy? Obviously, to have 50 head teachers attend the regional meeting is excellent news, but how is that training being passed down to the other staff? And I think Hugh commented on how we assess whether it's working or not, and I think he said that there was a good working relationship, and that Greer and Denbighshire have got their finger on the pulse in relation to various schools. So that's good news. And then one of my usual flippant questions. Page 58 of the main report, let's have a look, about fourth item down, it says, this is how should we approach curriculum preparation, support progression along a continuum of learning, and how they are working with other schools to ensure there is an alignment in the transitions across 13 to 16 continuum. Is there anybody who could explain to me what that means? Thank you.
Do you want me to come in there? Sorry. I haven't got that page in front of me. I do apologise, Mr. Holland, but it should read 3 to 16 continuum, because one of the unique aspects of this new curriculum is that it is designed to be a continuum of learning across the ages of 3 to 16. And the idea of the need to really...
So it's age, thank you.
It's age, sorry, it's 3 to 16. Yes, it must be a typo, I do apologise. But the idea is that we have to support and enable the principle of progression from the age of 3 to 16. So we have to be very clear within the clusters and within individual schools what a particular area of learning looks like if you're age 3, 4 or 5, and then what it looks like if you're age 13, 14, 15 and so on. So a key aspect of the sort of transformational nature of this curriculum is going to be that relationship between all the schools involved in that 3 to 16 education, to make sure that there's no repetition, to make sure that there's no slipping backwards, that it's all about progressing from something that's perhaps quite general and holistic to something that's more specific and disciplinary. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. As I say, there's a lot of jargon in this report. I did get my reference dictionary out last night to check some of the terms used. So I've completed my education as well. But thanks for that. But again, just is it September 2022 that we are formally rolling this out?
It is.
And will there be adequate training for staff? I think the assessment issue has already been covered by Hugh. Thank you.
Do you want me to come in here, Maya?
Yes, please, Jackie.
Mr. Holland, to answer the first question, yes, it is 2022 and all schools need to be implementing the new curriculum. Obviously, some schools are on that journey and they're having trial and error with it now, and some schools are still just working towards developing their own curriculum, and that's perfectly fine, and we will be supporting them on that. And in reference to how the training for different levels of leaders. If you refer to Annex 8 in your the pack that you've had, on the front page there is a very detailed time scale of when the information will be trained, when the different levels of leaders will be trained. So we are starting with the head teachers and the senior leaders and giving them the relevant information that they need to help them and support them in implementing the vision and looking at how they're designing their curriculum. And then that program will be delivered to the next tier level down, the middle leaders, relevant to them. So it's more that is, again, it is visionary, but it's more about the curriculum, which is what which is their department. And then that then is for the teachers and also the support staff as well. So if you look at the timetable, it's very small print, and I do apologise for that, but it does give you a detailed description of how that will be rolled out and what will be rolled out to the different levels. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I did have to get my magnifying glass out, but even when I tried that, a lot of the words were all a lot smaller than the magnifying glass would pick up. So thanks very much for that. Just one other quick question. All schools are setting their own curriculums. When will you be monitoring to see whether those curriculums are right? Thank you.
It's a good question. All schools are setting their own curriculum. We're helping and supporting to do that through working with individual schools and with the cluster. It's very, very early days to monitor whether any curriculum is right, in terms of they need to kind of have a go. They need to trial it themselves first, and then we will support them in the evaluation of that by looking at whether the curriculum is right for the children in terms of when they go through their assessment to see where the pupils are at. And then because we have got time until September 22, there is time for adjustment, and if it's not right, they've been given, schools have been given the go ahead to do this trial and error period, try to get it right for September, and we will be supporting schools to get it right as much as possible by September 2022. I don't think everyone's going to get it right the first time round.
Geraint, do you want
to come in?
Yes, is there anyone else within the official scrutiny meeting? Before I go outside, there are two members who are not part of this committee who want to ask questions. They're here to listen and they're right to ask questions. What about you, Kathleen? Are you happy? Yeah, she must be. Okay, ladies first, I think. We'll ask. Are you, Gwyneth?
Thank you.
It takes me back to when we had the last large curriculum change, and when I was teaching Spanish, and the impact, the extra work on the teachers cannot be underestimated, I think. Will there be changes to GCSEs to the exams at the end of, well, it's 16 and at 18, because these are what are important for universities, the A levels especially. So how are they going to adapt to the new curriculum? And a statement of what matters from the government. How prescriptive will that be? And a lot of this will surely rely on what teachers schools can employ. Or, for example, I'm interested in modern languages. Will modern languages suffer under this new curriculum? Diolch fawr iawn.
Do you want me to come in there, Geraint?
Yeah, great, Mair, diolch.
Diolch yn fawr i chi, Mair.
So 3 questions there. I'll try to be really brief. Yes, there is a consultation that's just been out a few months ago about the changes to the GCSEs. That came from Qualifications Wales, and it was quite detailed about the changes that are suggested at present, and it is very much still a suggestion. For example, of reducing some requirements from 2 GCSE suites to a 1.5, and to try to bring in some of the elements and spirit of the new curriculum into how those assessments will work. But the GCSE brand is still being held on to, but they will be reformed GCSEs. So that's ongoing and early stages as yet. There are no anticipated or communicated changes to the A levels, the AS and A level suites at this present time. But yes, for the GCSEs, you're quite right, there will be. Secondly, with the What Matters statements, there are 27 of them across the curriculum, and they will be, they are statutory. This is one of the consultations that is out at the moment to make sure that schools understand that across this continuum of the curriculum, these What Matters statements have got to inform the whys and the whats and the hows of the delivery of the curriculum. So they are going to be very much an integral part of the framework that schools have to work towards. And for MFL, I think this curriculum is going to, reignite really an interest in modern foreign languages. It sits within the languages and literacy and communication area of learning, and there are 6 areas of learning, as you know, in the curriculum. And I'm quite confident that it's going to be the case that modern languages are going to be better regarded, better allowed for in terms of curriculum time. And certainly within the RIL cluster yesterday, just for example, in the training that I was doing with the RIL cluster yesterday, it was one of the issues that was discussed, and there was great excitement from primary colleagues about the fact that there would be an encouragement to fit this into their curriculum and prepare children for that transition at 11 by having had better experience of modern foreign language teaching.
Yeah.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Hapus Gwyneth?
Thank you. Happy Gwyneth. Over now to Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis. Thank you, Chair. I won't keep you long. Just to say, the teacher, Mr. Roberts at Cefneriadog School, has had a conversation with me to inform me of the new arrangements. I happen to be a maths governor, and he went through it with me, so I did have an idea, a small idea anyway, of what you were discussing today. So just to say, the county have started, and some teachers have already started to pick up the new arrangements. Thank you. Thank you for that comment.
You have come back. I'll let you in now, Bob. Thank you. Are you with us, Bob? Please. Diolch.
Sorry, I'll come back in the end when all the others have had theirs. Thank you very much, Chair.
Ask a question? No?
No, I've got a question to ask at the end when everybody else has finished.
Oh, all right.
There is another one who isn't a member of the committee. Councillor Graham Timms, over to you, Graham.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Can I just, perhaps it's quite a specific question really, because the new curriculum sounds really interesting, and having been through feels like hundreds of curriculum changes during my professional life. It's good to see someone else having to do it this time. But one of the things obviously that is close to all of us as councillors' hearts is climate change. And I'm going to make a suggestion, because the curriculum talks about children being aware of the international situation, national situation and local situation. And one of the things which I'm sure, I've not seen the what matters list, but I assume that climate change and biodiversity is on that list. One of the things that really fires children up is having information about their local area. And I just wonder if it would be possible for Denbighshire to set up a bank of information about what's happening locally and what has happened locally, because then that gets children fired up about the situation and gives them the opportunity to share with their families and so on what's going on and what they can do in their lives to support local initiatives, but also to support international things as well. When I was doing curriculum change, the real problem for us were resources and availability of up-to-date materials. That's not a problem anymore because everything's on the internet. But the problem with the internet is there's so much information there that sometimes it's not accessible for local information to be reached. So would it be possible for the county to set up a bank of information for school teachers to include, or children to access, for local information about climate change? And just one possibility may be the council set aside £3 million a year for the next 3 years. Maybe a little bit of that money could go towards setting up education of children in climate change. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Eisiau ymateb y cwestiwn yna?
Thank you. Who wants to answer that question? Oh, Geraint. I'll start off.
With regards to information and bringing everything together, I think that is crucial, because we don't all want to be recreating the wheel and everything. From a school's perspective, we have got a what's called a hub sharing. It's accessible to, it's publicly accessible, but accessible to governors and all school staff who have hub accounts, where we collate all. It covers not just curriculum change, it covers everything you can ever think of, from policies to to everything else. It's a one-stop shop for schools to sort of dip in and find the information they want, because that was one thing that the consultative review did highlight, that head teachers wanted to continue that professional sharing, professional learning. Having something that's publicly available via, possibly, and I see that Liz is on the call, is possibly on the Denbighshire website. That is certainly something that would have merit as well. I also know that from Maya and Jackie's point of view, there are platforms where information and good practice is shared via GWARE platforms, and maybe Maya wants to come in here as well, because I jumped a bit.
Sorry. Yeah, we're happy to come in. One of the, I was just checking now, one of the what matters statements, Graham, is that pupils will be encouraged to be informed, self-aware citizens who engage with the challenges and opportunities that face humanity and are able then to take considered and ethical action. And this is one of the ones that feeds into the work that will be going in around climate change, and that ethical behaviour that is required on those 3 levels, as you said, local, national, international. But yes, there is on the GWARE website, this is something we've been doing since the beginning of lockdown. We've been actively encouraging co-working and collaborative working and the sharing of ideas and resources. And we've been able to gather that quite systematically on the GWER website so that it's available for all teachers across all schools in the region. Because as I think it was Gwyneth quite rightly said a few moments ago, there is a workload issue involved with this, and collaboration and co-working is absolutely at the heart of what we envisage as the success for the curriculum moving forward. So it will be, it's a really good idea. I've made a note of it. Really good idea to have this, collection of resources. I think it's something every authority could benefit from.
Diolch yn fawr, well done Graham. Ardderchog, diolch yn fawr iawn i gyd am ateb mor.
Thank you all for answering so well. I've got one question, but maybe you won't be able to answer it today. I'm talking about the Welsh medium cluster, such as Glan-Clwyd. We're having problems with Zoom this morning. Teams is much better and it's safer. Can Teams provide that through the medium of Welsh for a cluster such as Glan-Clwyd? I am not a Teams expert or Zoom, I must admit. The only thing I know from my understanding is that Zoom doesn't offer the translation facility. With Teams, you can't get a translator with Teams, but you can get it through Zoom. Hugh Hilditch Roberts would also like to add, personally, I have more problems with Teams than with Zoom.
Agreed.
Right, Bob, you want to come in before I bring this item to an end?
Yeah, yes, please, Chair. It's quite disturbing. I don't know if anybody saw the news today, English news, Est in England are having a terrible time with phones in school and a big rise in inappropriate photos, sexual bullying. It's quite disturbing. My question is, are we experiencing anything like this in our schools? What are our guidance on phones in schools, if any, or is this left up to individual schools? I do find this quite disturbing. Thank you, Chair.
We haven't been made aware that it is a major issue in our, well, mainly secondary schools. It is always an issue with mobile phones and social media and everything, and there's always an issue, sort of lingering in the back. We have got a local authority policy that schools adopt on social media and the use of social media and the use of devices and what have you in schools that each governing body adopt. It is a national policy. That's I think it's called the 360 approach, which puts the lines in the sand with regards to what is acceptable and what isn't. With regards to mobile phones, it is I think it's a constant battle in schools to try and ban mobile phones completely in schools. Would be extremely difficult, and also for pupils that possibly walk home, having that mobile phone is a safeguarding line for them if anything were to happen. But I do know that there are policies in schools on the use of mobile phones, and quite often when those policies are broken, there is a process, I know in some of our schools, where the mobile phones are confiscated and they have to be collected at the end of the school day. Or in the case of my own children, in my which is a school outside of Denbighshire, the parents have to go and pick the phone up, which is another, that's their policy. But I'm not aware that the issues that have been happening, I've seen the report in the press this morning, but the report from Ofsted about the degree of the issue in some schools in England, we haven't been made aware that we're at that point.
Yeah.
You've answered that very well, Geraint. Nicola wants to come in on this issue, and this item will then come to an end.
Diolch, Chair. Just to add what Geraint said, obviously this is an area of concern for all of us working with children and young people. It's something that the Regional Children's Safeguarding Board is considering and is aware of, and we've been doing work regionally now for some time around internet safety in particular. But this isn't just about social media, it's also about behaviours. North Wales Police has just instigated a survey for women to be able to report how they feel in terms of safety within their homes and within their communities. So that's open to women of any age. But this is an issue. It's an issue that's concerning all of us working within the sector, whether that be in education, in social care, or in any other field of public service. So we will continue to monitor this situation. As Geraint says, it's not something that we have had significant concerns raised with us locally. That being said, you know, the concerns are about people's feelings of being able to report if issues do occur, and that's something we will be keeping a very, very close eye on. So we're very aware of the situation and we'll monitor it very, very closely. Diolch.
Thank you very much, Nicola and Geraint.
Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi, Bob.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for answering that question, Geraint and Nicholas. So we've come to an end with this item.
Invited to discuss the details of the report and to identify any aspects of the work which may benefit from detailed examination in the future. Well, we have perhaps gone out of the many things outside the report, but it was worth bringing up. And I would advise you, someone to recommend that you come back to us in the future, that we can relook at the Donaldson report as soon as possible, say in 6 months' time. Would you agree with that, someone, please?
Agree with that.
Agreed.
Agreed. Are we all in favour? Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch I chi. Yeah.
I think it may be better to leave it longer than 6 months. 9 months? Yes. Because with the summer, for example, so that we can get more evidence. Okay, 9.
With us, if, I don't know, perhaps not many of us will be here. We'll see. You want your hand up there, Martin?
Mr. Chairman, I think what we probably need to know by next September is whether or not, you know, the county is happy that all schools have got their curriculum set. That's just an update. We can then come back 12 months later to see what the results are, because that's the issue for us, is how we monitor that this is going to work. So, you know, but I think by next September we need to know that yes, all the curriculums are in place and the county are happy that they're reasonably good, and then 12 months later possibly to see how it's worked.
So you were happy with 9 months, I hope, Martin. I am happy with 9 months. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Gai ddiolch.
Thank you. Could I thank the staff here and for everybody who's answered the questions with regards to education, Jackie, Mair, Geraint and Hugh this morning. We'll move on now then.
Regarding education. Save additional learning needs transformation update, June 21. So we are invited to read this report. And who's going to start us off? We've got 2 other members here, I believe. We certainly got someone. Joe Earl, is it, Geraint? Or Hugh? You're going to start then, Hugh? Diolch yn fawr.
Sick of my voice by now. Basically, as you will be aware, there was an act passed in 2018 for the Additional Learning Needs Act, which starts in September 2021. And without a shadow of a doubt, the amount of work that this has created, again, and here's my little political stab, is that I really struggle when an act is introduced but no money is attached to implementing it. And you know, this really is an example of that. However, because of our appetite of our staff and our stakeholders at GWE and the county and the schools, a considerable amount of work has been done to ensure that the implementation of this will be done and done in the right way. You know, and I think it's really important to know that everything that I've said about the curriculum in the previous, about the workings of Denbighshire and GWE and the schools, this is another fine example of the execution of that, and you know, the sharing of best practice. Because effectively, how can I say to you, it's almost what you need is a doctor's record of each individual child. Is a simple way of putting it. Really, it's a one pager that, you know, if Hugh Irvine was a pupil in Prestatyn, it doesn't matter what school he moved to, if he moved to Rill or moved to Denby, his record as such would be consistent and would go with him, and his learning plans would be shared in that way. So even though there are learning plans that people set up now, but it's actually taking it to another level and having the infrastructure behind it to support it, which I think it's a big step. So the progress we've done really is that the regional support transformation lead is a lady called Helen Smith, and for the last 6 months she's worked completing the data report for the region, which shows how Denbighshire is working towards it. So that's in Appendix 1, 2 and 3. So if you want to have a look at that, you can see there are various regional working groups ongoing, and there are action plans in there. So you know, and also there are specialist groups that look after children group as well. So there are, and others are not in school, because obviously we have to consider them and how we execute that. The staff training has been right across Denbighshire, and you know, everyone has been giving that opportunity, and you know, the struggle. I think also that the budgets. To be clear, I said before that there was no extra money. However, the school ALN funding is totally delegated to the schools, so it's how they execute that, and you know, on working on their 3-year working average, and I would say some of the balances are looking better at this time of year than they have maybe in the previous 12 months because of some extra funding that's come in. But what I do know, there are really good examples again of cluster working to working, you know, working with the high school in the cluster to be the lead on the ALN, and then working with the primary schools to support it. So they've taken it on as the day job instead of actually costing the cluster or the schools more as well. So again, you know, I know I sound like a stuck record, but I think we're so fortunate in Denbighshire to have that commitment from our staff, because it's, you know, other areas is not my job, so why should I do it? But this just shows the commitment of the staff who are putting, you know, our children, putting our children first. We've developed an IT system to support this for the documentation, which has been done with, I think it's Denbighshire, Flintshire, Cymru and Wrexham, I think, is it, yeah? And that basically all the processes will be on a clip system, so everybody has that there's that system in place to support them. So there's easily monitoring, you know, monitoring forms, plans, etc. There's also the team around the school has established learning support, so they help with the statutory assessment process. You know, I think we've got challenges on language. Before Ara asked to me, you know, when there is challenges around assessment on languages in Welsh, especially, but we are working with that, and I think what this does, it brings all the stakeholders together closer straight away, working on a cohesive plan, other than it being sporadic and a bit disjointed. And one of the challenges is what provisions are in the school to support these. you know, and how do you determine, for example, if a children has ALN, what are the triggers? What do we do? What have we got in schools? And I think that's some of the stuff that I think you can have an example at Appendix 4. So if you have a look at that there, there's some of that there. So the individual development plan, everyone will be trained the development plans in the school. We've done some examples of it already in schools. So by September, any existing plan will have been ditched. It will be the new individual development plan that everyone have, and this will ensure complete consistency. You know, and again, we come back to the curriculum. If you've got a year 6 pupil in one school with ALN and they're being managed in this way, however, another school, they arrive in high school with a 200-page report or whatever it may be, you know, the high school is in a far better position with the more intelligence it has about these children in order to map their plan going forward. You know, again, I'm speaking from my own as a governor now. I know that Ysgol Bryn Hyfryd work very closely with the junior schools, because what they call the Senko there is actually the lead for the cluster. So therefore, they're all feeding into her. So there's consistency throughout the step up into secondary education. We have supported the schools with a new ALN coordinator role, which will be compulsory as of the 4th of January. And you know, we know there's some challenges getting staff in, but we're working already to do that. And what I think this will add to Denbighshire is it will help us with the curriculum get the best out of our children in Denbighshire with their strengths coming out at the right end. You know, I think you've heard me. I think you've heard me before say, you know, sometimes I struggle with when I'm reporting on the exams. You know, when sometimes when a child goes into a school at a level, say a grade F, but comes out with a C in a couple of years, that is a massive improvement on that children's, you know, if on the level that children has committed to its education. But where we're measuring, if they don't get A's and B's, that children hasn't done. Well, some children can only execute what their ability is, and these plans will help us know and understand what abilities our children have. Yeah, ti eisiau dod I fewn? Dwi wedi gorfod on.
Right, to come in. Do you want to answer the problem with Welsh that Hugh mentioned? And so that I was going to ask a question.
Yeah, if I can just draw your attention just to one of the documents that was included from a scrutiny point of view, the self-assessment for assessing the extent to how prepared the local authority are. That document, we've gone through the Act, and you know, what are the compliance requirements? What exactly is required from a compliance point of view? What are the measures? And then it's ragged. So it's ragged with regards to colour.
Ti'n torri, well, ti'n rhoi fideo I ffwrdd.
This document, it's the self-assessment of how prepared are we for the implementation of the Act, and it's ragged, so it shows you, you know, in this compliance measure, are we red, are we green, are we amber? And if we were to return with ALN transformation, say in 12 months' time, or you know, however long, well, comparing where we are now, and you know, the question, you were red last time, why are you still red now? You know, you weren't ready last time, you're still not ready. What's happened? What has the progress been made? We just thought that would be a very valuable document, you know, for scrutiny members, just to see exactly what the position is. Just so I thought I'd highlight that, because I think Hugh's gone through the majority of the report.
What you mentioned with the Welsh language there, that you had problems. With regards to the Welsh language, which problems were those, Hugh? No, what I was saying was, when somebody with dyslexia, for example, it's difficult to get the right resources to assess sometimes, and it's only possible to do that through the medium of English. I've raised that with the government to ensure that for somebody who speaks Welsh, they must be, and to be assessed in English, well, then they're losing out straight away because they're not being assessed in their first language, in their own language.
Problem.
That is still a problem.
Resources available through the medium of Welsh, and it is a national issue, and it is an issue not only for the area of additional learning needs, it's an issue across the board with Welsh medium education, because the market isn't perceived to be big enough really for various companies, and it is an issue that we do raise often with the powers that be to to try and drive things forward.
Diolch yn fawr. All right.
Thank you. Martin wants to come in, and then Peter. Martin first, please.
Oh, guys, again. I must admit, when I read this report, I was quite surprised actually that we were talking about transition to something called additional learning needs. I didn't realise there were so many other terms, because I must admit I've always known it whether a child needs more help than others, that it's additional learning needs. So that was a bit of a surprise. There's just a couple of quick questions. First and foremost, budgets. I noticed page 7244, they're talking about budgets for additional learning needs being fully delegated and working towards a 3-year average for funding for schools. How does that work when, for example, halfway through that 3-year budget, a school suddenly has an influx of children who need additional support? And I had one school in my area where all of a sudden one year there were 4 pupils out of a cohort of 60 who actually needed that support. So, is there a way to support those schools if there is suddenly an influx of children who need that additional support? And then actually this is one, Bob touched on homeschooling before, and I must admit, when I was making my notes for the meeting today, I didn't see homeschooling as an issue for the new curriculum-based education, because that's a choice that parents make. But how do we identify children who may have additional learning needs when they're being homeschooled? That would be quite a concern for me, that perhaps somebody with those needs are being missed out. Thank you.
Hi. If I can introduce Joe Earl, he's joined us in the meeting. He's a transformation lead, and Mary Gaskell, who oversees this area of work, and I think Mary is going to come in for the question around the budgets and how it works with the influx, because there is a process around that.
Yeah.
You there, Mary?
Yeah, diolch, Geraint. I'm sorry, I haven't got my video on. It's not very good here in Sandrock, so I do apologise. So you can't see me, but hopefully you can hear me. So in terms of the funding formula, we have developed costed provision maps, which will then form the 3-year average. Up to now, it's been based on previous formulas, but moving from September, it will be worked on provision maps. So, the school ALNCOs at the moment are working on those so that we have that data ready to start in September. With the sudden influx, there is, and it went to the school budget forum it is this academic year, I think it was just before Christmas. There is a thing called the transition pot, which
I think with the increase of funding given to additional learning needs, that pot was also agreed to be increased from 50,000 to I think 80 or 90,000 pounds. So that gives us greater flexibility. So schools head teachers know that they can sort of come to me, and then there is like an e-panel that Geraint sits on, Joe and some of the other members of the inclusion team. We sit on that and we go through that request for additional funding. And because we've had that increase from the council in terms of allocation for ALN, that does actually mean that before that transition pot really was a short-term measure, but it does mean that there is the potential for that to be longer term until their costed provision maps can actually feed in for the full 3 years to make sure that they're getting, those children are getting the support they need, and that's the most important thing. So there is a transition pot there, but also the costed provision maps, which are going to be moderated once a year, will also allow for any flexibility on that 3-year average process as well. I would answer the EHE, but I think Joe also leads on that, so I think he's probably better placed, but I'm there, Joe, to support if you need any help with that one.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So the question was about how do we identify children who are electively home educated of additional learning needs. That can be difficult at times because the authority doesn't have any responsibility in providing provision. However, we do obviously ask for updates, and we obviously need to monitor that children are getting a full-time suitable education. I suppose in terms of how the new Act and the new ALN Code of Practice impacts that, we are working with Helen Smith, the Regional Transformation Lead, and regional partners on that. We do meet as a regional ALN transformation group, and we also do meet in my EHE role, we do meet as a regional elective home education officers group as well. So that work is continuing. A couple of things just to highlight is that if a child was in a school that did have additional learning needs and then went to be home educated, then obviously we would be aware of that and we would continue support where appropriate. And also that at any point with the new Code of Practice, parents, young people or health professionals, for example, can raise a concern with the local authority where they believe a child might have additional learning needs. So if that was the case, we could then obviously contact parents and offer to assess their child if needed.
Diolch yn fawr. You happy, Martin?
Thank you. Are you happy, Martin?
Sorry, I'm just finding my mute button again. Yes, I'm to a point. I'm just concerned that children who may have additional learning needs don't slip through the net, and it is difficult when they're being homeschooled to do that assessment, because if they come into school, then obviously it can be picked up quite quickly that a child needs extra support, especially at an early age, and I would worry that they were slipping through the net. But thank you very much.
Cynghorydd Peter Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Martin's stolen my thunder. That was going to be my question. 4.4 on budgets, which is typical. I get in second and I miss out. I just wanted to say, that this additional leads, normally the funding can actually sometimes balance the school book. So the children do need to be. I think we've had an answer that the children need a hello.
You're breaking up.
Second again. Thank you.
Okay, but you're happy anyway. You did break up a little bit there. Okay, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. On my side here is a certificate that I, as a governor, have followed a course on virtually that I know what ALN means, Certificate of Completion as a governor. The additional learning needs system in Wales. So every governor is invited to follow that one if you have a chance. I'm sure Hugh Hilditch has done already. A question I got is 0 to 25. We must remember that the children start at a very, very young age in the Cylchoedd Meithrin, in the playgroup, and also they move on from high school. That is new to me. That where they understand 0 to 3, but following them up after they leave high school to be 25. How are you going to keep an eye on these adults by then?
Just come in again, Navi.
I can also add to that, Chair.
Shall I start?
Yeah, go on then.
So yeah, so it is a big change in terms of the age range, obviously going up to 25. Obviously there's a lot of work that goes on with our sort of early years team, preschool team, and they've been working very hard with the playgroup settings to ensure that they are ready, and obviously our internal local authority team are ready with the changes. In terms of post-16 education, the implementation of the ALN reform to post-16 has been postponed a year, so that'll be coming in September 2022 now. And I think that's to allow more time for local authorities, Welsh Government and colleges, FEIs, to understand the implications of that. I know we have got in Denbighshire and across North Wales, in fact, we do have regional meetings with colleges, and also Conwy and Denbighshire have a subgroup meeting with groups from different Menai and College Cambria, so the two colleges that support or provide for Denbighshire and Conwy, and we are working with them to understand the implications of this, and also with health colleagues as well.
Thank you, Joel, for that answer. I noticed that Geraint and Hugh Hildis wants to come back. Who's first? And we've got Nicola. Well, since Nicola is above the other two, we'll start Nicola first.
Ladies first, definitely. Diolch, Chair. Just to add that practitioners from Phil Gilroy's service, Community Support Services, which cover the adult social care aspect, have been involved in the work around ALN reform from the very beginning alongside Geraint's service. So this is very much part of our joint working. It's a corporate issue, whilst obviously it focuses around education. This is part of our corporate priority, as you know. Children are very much priority for this council. So this is something that we have been cited on and working together from the outset, and officers working within the transition period, but also then up to that age of 24 are completely cited on and involved in the work to develop this. As Joe said, those colleges are involved, but also some of our more specialised adult residential education colleges are also involved, and we work with those as well. So just to reassure you all that we are very aware of this and the age range that it does cover. Diolch.
Hugh, you should know.
Hugh, do you want to come back? No, everything's been covered. What about you, Geraint?
Just to say, yes, the age range 0 to 25 does put sort of additional pressure on the system. As the report alludes to, one of the areas is the education psychology team. There will be an increase to their workload, and there is a national shortage of educational psychologists. They are very, very far and few between to find them. And we will need to, it will be a pressure that we will need we've currently got 3. We've got an advert out to replace a member of staff that we lost. I think it was possibly just before Christmas, who moved to another authority. But we are aware that we will require an additional educational psychologist to undertake the work that's required under the new Act. So, that age range is one of the pressures, but, the Act does, although it's cost neutral in the eyes of some, in reality, it does put additional pressure on the system.
Nicola, should know. Croeso chi, Nicola.
Yeah, just in addition to that, Chair, in addition to our own resource psychologists, there is also a national shortage of health psychologists. I'll just turn my video off.
Yeah, that is a problem.
So we know that prior to COVID, there was a waiting list for neurological assessments for children and also for adults. We know that because of COVID and because of the reprioritisation of health services, that those waiting lists have increased considerably. So that makes it very difficult for us, because if a child doesn't have a formal diagnosis from a medical profession, it can limit our full understanding of that child's needs. Then we require our educational psychologists' input even more in the absence of that full medical diagnosis. So it is an ongoing challenge, which is going to be difficult, not just for Denbighshire, but for all local authorities. Diolch.
Diolch I chi, Nicola. Mae hynna.
Thank you, Nicola. That's true. One other thing that concerns me is the fact that there are movements in the population, aren't there? People move in from other areas in the United Kingdom. Some from Scotland, some from England and Ireland. And do they follow the same kind of assessments as people who need additional support in their education?
Do you want me to answer this one, Geraint?
Well,
They don't follow exactly the same systems in terms of the support that they provide, but what there are very strong systems of the transferring of information and data. So whether if a child is well, currently for us with a statement or an IDP moving forward, or they come to us from England, for example, with what they call an EHCP, we would convert that into our version with all the information that they provide. So they're not exactly the same, however they never have been, but what there is quite sort of strong and robust procedures to convert those into the correct documentation once they transfer to a different area.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Mae 'na.
Thank you. There are one or two hands up, but we must bring this to an end. We want to break shortly, but two from outside the committee want to speak. I'll start this time again. Ladies first, Councillor Gwyneth Kensler. Thank you. Just very briefly, what is the cooperation like with CAMS, and is there a waiting list for a CAMS appointment?
We actually met with CAMS yesterday for working on the whole school approach to mental health and well-being. So, you know, there is very close working with CAMS. I know that, yes, their waiting lists are longer. So we are sort of adapting and trying to work with what we can do to support in terms of the sort of nurture areas and all of that. Obviously, where it crosses from what we can do in terms of mental well-being and mental health, we can't interfere with what is a mental illness. So, you know, there are very clear lines that we can't cross, but we are working very closely between them. And as I say, we met yesterday. I think, Geraint, you know, the people from CAMS found our approach very refreshing, I think was the word one of them used, in terms of just looking at what we're all able to provide, that we're not duplicating, because that also can be counterproductive if there's too much being sort of offered by too many different people, but to create a coordinated approach in terms of what we can do. But yes, CAMS waiting lists and the social communication panel for those sort of who are preschool or with disabilities are delayed. They are longer than they have been for many a time. So yes, there are going to be delays in terms of diagnosis for some children with it.
Diolch.
Diolch eto. Da iawn.
Thank you again, Ms Llanfwrog. Thank you. Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis now, please. Could I just come in here, Councillor Hugh Roberts, in response to what Councillor Gwyneth Kensler said?
I haven't said it publicly before, but I think one of the biggest challenges we have in education is where mental health sits, because there seems to be a problem in that, you know, that mental health and illness isn't a children's service problem. It's actually a national health problem. And I think, you know, really for me, and it's something that when I meet whoever in charge of the portfolio going forward for Welsh Government, is I'll be asking this question, because to not take mental health serious enough to class it as an illness and national health treat it, rather than push it to a social worker's problem, that is not the situation we really need to be in. So I think, you know, there's a lot of work we have to do in this area in the future, and there's something that hopefully over the next 12 months or the last 10 months that I've got left in post, that I will be trying to champion that a little bit more to raise that awareness, because I think that's a massive challenge we've got, because I think it would, by identifying the issues early and getting treatment early, would alleviate pressures on the National Health Service mental health later on in life.
Thank you for that. Very good. Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis now, please. Thank you, Chair, once again. Thank you for the report. I've tried to analyse it a bit, but I wonder whether Appendix 2 and 3 are available through the medium of Welsh, because I notice that the North Wales counties are all in Appendix 2. And the second question, what is the support for Welsh language families? Which one was Appendix 2? I've got all the appendices in front of me. Page 85. I've printed them, so I'm not on the pages. Is it the preparatory self-assessment? Is it that document? Yes. By J. Earl. Yes. At the moment, that document, it's an internal working document that changes regularly. So as we assess the steps that are taken, the content changes regularly because it's a live document. So at the moment, it isn't available through the medium of Welsh. Otherwise, we'd be translating regularly or monthly. What about Appendix 3? Which one is that? Page 103. Additional learning needs, Appendix 3, information. Confidence in terms of employment. I can't see which one that is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. That's PowerPoint. It's the presentation. Mary, is that available in Welsh? I don't think it is at the moment. We were working on that, so maybe it isn't available, but it will be available later on. There will be a translation available for training, because obviously the training will be bilingual. In terms of the support to families in Welsh medium schools, any training and any resources will be available. Everything within our control will be available bilingually, naturally. Some things where we'll be working with external stakeholders. We have got no control over that and their content, but in terms of supporting the 15 Welsh medium schools, we will obviously be trying to ensure that everything, all the resources and so on, will be available in Welsh where we can. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Joe wants to come in.
Yes, it was just to add that the Appendix 3 is, we're just finalising the document, so once it's finalised, we will get that translated. And as Geraint said, all the documents that we're preparing, whilst they're sort of internal documents that are in draft form and being worked upon, we wait until they're sort of near finalisation and we're happy with them, and then we get them translated. There are some documents, such as Appendix 4, which you have sight of, which is a fairly draft document, but because this is a document that we needed all schools, including Welsh mediums, to work with, we did get that translated, so that obviously Welsh medium schools can work through it in their first language.
Diolch yn fawr.
Can I just add, whilst we're on the Welsh language, it was raised earlier about Microsoft Teams and the translation, but during this meeting I've just been on the phone to Bill Gates, and he's informed me that they're in the testing stage at the moment, and that will be done in September, and they're looking to launch a bilingual service in Welsh at the end of the year. So just to let you know, it's hot off the press. We're already on it. That's how fast we work in Denbighshire.
Oh, ti'n ni goblin o foi.
Oh, you're a bit of a chap, Hugh Hilditch Roberts. Excellent. Thank you. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. Thanks very much.
Felly,
So,
recommendation. Invite to discuss the details of this report and identify any aspects of the transformation work which may benefit from detailed examination in the future, and confirms that it has read, understood and taken account of the well-being impact assessment as part of this consideration. Well, we've done very well. Dan ni 'di wneud yn dda iawn. Ac dwi'n...
I propose that we accept the recommendations and that you come back to us again in 9 months, maybe. What do you think of that, Mr. Gates's friend? I'll ask Bill. No, that will be fine.
Lovely. Diolch yn fawr. Felly, dyn ni gyd yn gytun.
So are we all in agreement that this comes before us again? And best of luck with the very important work, people who need additional support in education. Thanks to Geraint and everybody else who've contributed from Gwe. Thanks to Mary and thanks to Joe. Thank you all for that. We'll move now to have a break, 15 minutes, and then if we come back about 5 to 12. Is that all right, Rhian? Okay.
Diolch yn fawr. Croeso nôl. Dyma ni.
Come back, here we are.
Yeah.
We move on to the next item today. And welcome to Councillor Paul Penlington has arrived. Welcome. He's come here mid-meeting. The next agenda item, Councillor Julia Thompson-Hill. I don't think Councillor Alan Smith isn't here. Nicola Neil is to be here. Yol McGregor is here. They have created this document, and we're going to discuss the report and ask what steps we need to take to carry after reading the report. So over to you, Julian. Welcome.
Diolch, Mr. Caded. As you said, this is the annual performance report. I'm just going to give a very short introduction before handing over to Iolo and Nicola to take you through the detail of the report. Just to say, obviously, as you will probably have noticed from your packs, this report has grown in length over the years. It's now over 120 pages long. And that's largely down to the fact that a lot of data which used to be in separate reports is now being combined into this one report. Also, this report now meets our obligations under a number of recent pieces of legislation, and especially to include the new Local Government and Elections Act. The bulk of the report still covers our corporate plan in terms of the projects and priorities under that, and reports retrospectively on where we are and what we've achieved in terms of moving to deliver the outcomes we wanted from the corporate plan that we all approved. As I say, for the first time, there's a new chapter in the report in terms of our requirements for self-assessment, which I'm sure you've heard about under the Local Government Act. I'm sure Iolo will give you a bit more detail on that going forward. In terms of the report itself, it covers a number of areas. There's a section on the finance of the authority and also how we funded the corporate plan. Of course, we couldn't have a report without mentioning the impacts and our responses to COVID. Then, as I say, the bulk of the report is down to the corporate plan priorities, broken down with some considerable detail on each of those, and then a bit of a brief look forward to what is now the current year. Then there were some sections on our approaches to sustainability, equality, the Welsh language, any external regulators' viewpoints which have been published during the course of the year, and highlights from the national data set, in terms of our comparative data. And then finally, there's the snapshot of the project registers and the risk register as well. So as I say, it covers a lot of different areas within the one report. Obviously, we're not going to take you through page by page on this, otherwise we'd be here till next week probably. But I will now hand over to I think it's Yolo first, to pick out some of the highlights from the report. So Yolo, do you want to come in there, please?
I think actually Nicola's going to jump in first. Sorry, Julian.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yes, bore da pawb. And thank you for the introduction, Julian. As you said, we acknowledge that this is a large report, but it also covers a number of statutory functions. Given its length, I will not go into an awful lot of detail about the content today in order to leave room for debate, but just to give you some assurance that when this is presented to Council in early July, I will showcase our achievements and hone in on a little bit more of the detail then. I'm going to talk just briefly around the updates against our priorities before handing over to Yolo, who will give an overview of the corporate health section of the report. But I'm very conscious that the role of this committee is to scrutinise performance. So we advise you to use this report to assure yourselves of where things are progressing well, and also identify areas for further exploration. Broadly, as an overview of each of the priorities, in terms of housing, our progress and our current standing is good. Although numbers on the SARTH waiting list have increased, we are working to understand reasons for this and explore potential solutions to managing that waiting list. At the outset of the corporate plan, we committed to providing over 1,000 extra homes in Denbighshire by the end of March next year, and we are largely on track to deliver that. We've certainly scoped out all of the locations where extra housing will be delivered, but certainly in the example of the provision of additional council homes, there may be a little bit of slippage in the timetable due to COVID and the restrictions that that's placed in terms of number of builders on site and that kind of thing. Nevertheless, we have identified the sites and the homes that we'll be bringing forward. Moving on to the connected priority, this one is actually a priority for improvement at the moment, and that's largely due to the road conditions and also the condition of our broadband infrastructure. However, we do have projects in place to address broadband infrastructure, and they're progressing well and developing momentum. Some of the projects we'll deliver in the next financial year include a project to improve the events infrastructure around the county, which was something that was really important to our residents when we were doing the county conversation. It's a project that has been on hold due to COVID, but again, momentum is picking up there now. In terms of community resilience, there are a few key projects here that include that I will
breaking up, Nicola, I'm afraid.
Community resource teams. Hello, can you see me okay? I've just had a message that my connection's unstable, so I'm going to stop my video.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Diolch. yes, lots of projects here have been completed actually under this priority this year, and overall we're making good progress. It's a very similar story with the environment priority. There's been a significant development this year in terms of adoption of a climate and ecological change strategy. And in general, we've delivered very well against this priority. The projects are progressing well. Where there is a challenge is in terms of the energy efficiency of existing council homes. Social distancing restrictions have made delivery against the timetable challenging because it's been difficult for people to enter homes in order to make the necessary changes to enable those energy efficiency measures to be brought forward. But nevertheless, the work is still in the pipeline and there is a plan there for its delivery. And finally, in terms of the young people's priority, COVID really has had a significant impact here. One that I think we're still in the middle of, and it's difficult to really draw conclusions about what the impact will be on children's education and their attainment potential in the future. However, I know as a committee that you've talked about educational attainment at some length this morning. Another area of concern under this priority is the level of youth unemployment, which has really grown exponentially since the impact of COVID, and where Denbighshire's position is significantly worse than that of the rest of Wales. However, we do have numerous interventions in place to try to address this. So we've got the Work Start scheme, Working Denbighshire, and also work placements associated with opportunities throughout the council. So there are interventions in place. So that's just an overview and a high-level view of where each of those priorities are that I wanted to give you today. I'll hand over to Iolo now, who'll speak a little bit about the corporate health section, which is a new section of your report, and then we're happy to take questions. Diolch yn fawr.
Sorry, Iolo, just before you come in, if I could just add 2 points that I forgot to mention at the beginning, just to reinforce what Nicola has said. I just wanted to highlight, I think it's about page 155, 156, something like that in the report, which is a note on measuring performance. Because whilst we do have 2 areas, as Nicola highlighted, which are still remaining as priority for improvement, it's just to clarify what that actually means. And the definition there is essentially that it's below the comparative median data for those items where we can have comparable data across Wales. So I just wanted to try and reassure that whilst they are areas for priority for improvement, it doesn't necessarily mean that our performance levels are necessarily poor. It just means that in relation to the other authorities in Wales, we are unfortunately below the median level. So I just wanted to reinforce that. Sorry, Iolo, to cut across you.
Thank you, Julian. As Julian and Nicola have already said, it is a long report. It has to work incredibly hard to satisfy all the relevant legislative requirements that we're now having to meet. It's responding to the Equality Act, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, the Local Government and Elections Act now, which some members will remember that I came around committees with Gary Williams in January to brief on. I was particularly there to brief obviously on the performance aspects because those elements were coming live from April that's just passed. So they were more pressing. And the part that I was talking about then was about the need to self-assess against our council functions. And I was particularly nervous at the time about what that term meant, because we are a very large organisation. We cover a range of functions. How far into the minutiae would we reasonably have to go to satisfy the legislation? So we've had independent advice through the WLGA that our report would have to cover our performance objectives, our wellbeing objectives, which fortunately the annual performance report already did, as did our QPRs, which you see regularly. The only additionality would be the 7 governance areas that the statutory guidance refers to. The 7 governance areas are actually headings that are provided through the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So it's tying in with that piece of legislation. So we weren't sure back in January if we needed to produce an entirely separate self-assessment document. Fortunately, following that independent advice, it made sense to us not to do that and to bring it all together and simply add the section that we needed to this report. Now, I should say, actually, just to give some assurance, the section that covers the corporate plan is actually shorter than last year by 7 pages. So I'd ask you to bear that in mind. It's the new bit that has significantly bulked up the report. And hopefully, as that embeds and our quarterly reports take over, we will hopefully see that section reduced as well. But we will be giving some severe thought over the next year about how we can make this report more accessible and succinct. It is our first pilot, after all. So the section on corporate health, I'm just looking where that starts in your packs. It starts on page 214 in your agenda packs. We followed exactly the same format that you're used to seeing with the corporate priorities. So the first section will talk about performance against a set of measures that the senior leadership team and lead members have identified. And those measures, we believe, are key measures of our corporate health, what we think says if we are basically running an effective organization. And then the subsequent section after the measures looks at those 7 headings in detail, and we have had obviously input from lead officers responsible for those areas. So the finance section has been written by Steve Gadd, assets by our assets manager, and procurement by the procurement team, etc. So just wanted to assure members that this is not information I've pulled off the top of my head. It has had service input, obviously. And then finally, I think I should point members to what is page 100 in the report. I'm not sure what that is in your agenda packs. Page 242. What we've done there, the legislation requires us to draw out improvement activities for the year ahead. So based on the analysis that officers have provided us for the 7 governance areas, we've then tried to draw out reasonable improvement activity for us to focus on in the year ahead. So it's important that members are aware of that as well. Otherwise, I'm happy to turn this over to debate now. I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, 3 of you, Julian, and also Nicola and Yala. I can't see any hands up. Oh, yes, there's one. I can see on screen. Councillor Paul Penlington, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking for the virtual hand. That's what waving at you. As somebody said, this is a very large report, and I don't want to get into the minutiae of it too much, but we'll hear all week. There's a couple of questions I've got about finance of it all. There's reference on page 6 to an underspend of 9.5 million. Is that really an underspend, or has it been allocated elsewhere to start off with? Thank you.
Okay, I can answer that one. I haven't got to the page exactly, so I think it's about 9.7 million in round figures. It is the official underspend figures as I reported to Cabinet on the outturn figure a few weeks ago. However, that includes just over £7 million improvement in the position on school balances. There was, as was reported earlier in the agenda under other items, there were a number of quite late grants that came in from Welsh Government for a number of purposes which went to schools. And because schools obviously have been closed for much of the last 12 months. There were a lot of one-off costs as well in terms of savings on lighting, heating, and a lot of other things. So what that that significant chunk almost needs to be put to one side. In terms of the services and corporate budget, which makes up the balance of that, in a number of cases, services have declared what is a legal underspend, but what it is essentially, it's deferred spending because they weren't able to spend it in the last financial year. And we agreed that we obviously wouldn't take those off them, we'd roll them forward into this year. And again, in terms of corporate budget, we received some additional Welsh Government funding rights at the death of the financial year, which has enabled us to allow us to essentially to support the services that we otherwise thought we weren't going to be able to support. So yes, on paper it looks like it's a huge underspend. Most of it's from schools for one-off reasons, and much of the bulk of that is deferred spending, really, essentially, not actual underspend.
Okay, thank you. I didn't think we'd have a bag of money lying around. Thank
No.
you.
I wish, yeah.
Right, happy, Paul? Iawn.
You happy, Paul? Right, we'll move on now to Councillor Peter Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at the supplement we were sent on pages 8 and 9 about public planning and public protection and countryside. Stage 1 complaints were down at 94%, and the second one, stage 2 complaints, it's down as far as 33%. I'm just wondering if we have a problem in that area, and then we're looking into it. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Just on that, Councillor Scott, that's just an information report on the complaints process. That's not related directly to this report.
I thought I'd seen public planning and all that in this report as well. My fault, I'm looking in the wrong place.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Diolch i Rhianna, diolch i...
Thanks, Rhianna. Thanks, Peter.
Please. Still here, is he? Where's Martin?
Yep, Martin, see if there's hand up.
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Actually, can I just say this? This is a bit deja vu for me because, as Yellow knows, this was presented to Corporate Governance and Audit Committee yesterday, and all my questions were probably answered yesterday. I'm also a bit conscious too that all my questions are down on page numbers that were for yesterday's meeting, which obviously this report was at a different part in the meeting. So again, it's a little bit more difficult. But what I did say yesterday, and I think it's it's key now the same, that this is an excellent report, especially for councillors, because it gives us the opportunity to have a look at things that we may want to call into scrutiny. Or to ask more questions over. And sometimes we are scratching our heads thinking, what should we bring into scrutiny? And here is a report that really gives you some major opportunities to consider things. One of the things that I picked up yesterday on a different page, I hasten to add to what's on in this particular schedule today, the unclassified roads. Was to be removed from the framework that the highways use to monitor which roads need to be assessed. And that's one I certainly will be looking to possibly submit, a scrutiny request form and to get that in for scrutiny. So I don't think there's anything you need to answer on that one because we did discuss it yesterday. And also I noticed, things like the extra care housing in Ruthin, there's been delay there because of our high specification for that exercise. The tender exercise was unsuccessful. So again, you know, what is the way forward on that one? So we may, as councillors, want to ask, you know, officers to come back and comment on that, for example. So that I don't want to say any more because I probably said it all yesterday. So apologies about that.
Martin, you obviously know more than us already. Well done, and look forward to get the forms to scrutiny so we can follow up your suggestions. Can I go to page 7, please? There's 2 questions here I'd like to ask. Denbighshire leisure overspent. Does DCC allow that? And also schools delegated. What does outturn mean? Was there an underspend? Have they been given the underspend?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the page you were referring to. Won't be a second.
149 in the pack, Julian.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just scrolling through on my laptop here now. Okay, in terms of the school's delegated budget, as I said in response to Paul's question, there was an improvement on the position on the schools. As you'll know, we came into the year with a deficit balance across the school estate, and that turned round and improved by just over the £7 million for a number of reasons. Though that money is by definition has all gone to schools. So that answers hopefully that question. Sorry, Arwell, whilst I was scrolling through, I forgot what your first question was. It was about Denbighshire leisure, wasn't it?
It was, Julian.
Yes, yeah, it was, wasn't it? Denbighshire leisure obviously was in a pretty unique situation last financial year, in that it's set up as a standalone company on the 1st of April, and then everything was promptly shut down on the 1st of April because of COVID. Essentially, pretty much all of the loss of income that we would otherwise have anticipated coming into Denbighshire leisure was claimed back from Welsh Government as part of their funding support package. The figures there. I think you asked also as well what the outturn was. So the first column is the budget that was set at the beginning of the year. The outturn was the finalised figure, and then the variance is either whether it's up or down on what was budgeted for at the beginning of the year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Paul Pennington has got his hand up again virtually now.
Chair, sorry. Going back to a couple of points, one raised by Martin about highways and such like. Where's my question gone? On the report I've got, page 9 and 10, capital expenditure states £24.5 million on highways, only £5 million on education. Can you tell us which grants or what grants both of these services have had and how much?
I'm just now getting back. So which table were you referring to, Paul, please?
Page 9, 10. Hang on, it's gone off my screen now. I've got 2 computers on the go.
Yeah, so that's my problem as well.
The report I'm looking at is page 9. I don't know what you're looking at.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I've got it there now.
Yeah, page 9, 10.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is the high level summary of the spend. I haven't got in front of me, unfortunately, the detailed breakdown of what that actually is comprised of, I can get that for you.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a long document, probably.
That's okay. I'd like a read.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can get that for you. I just haven't got it in front of me at the moment.
Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Cynghorydd Peter Scott.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Scott.
Taking mine down, Chair. I'm very sorry. My hand must still be up. It's my fault.
Page 18 here in the report that's been provided by Iolo and Nicola. You got land near Ysgol Pendref, 20% affordable, but could that have been 100%? Possibly, yeah, we could have had more affordable houses there. No, not houses. And then section 106, been challenged by shared equity property owners. What does that mean? On page 18, bit of a loss there.
Hello, Chair. I'll try to answer that for you. As far as I can, not being an expert in the topics though. In terms of the affordable housing, I couldn't really comment on that, on the provision that has been made available there, but I know that certainly within new housing schemes, there is an expectation in terms of planning conditions that a certain proportion is affordable, and therefore 100% I don't think is part of our planning condition stipulations. And in terms of the section 106 agreement, so this is the amount of money that developers need to make available to the local council in order to support services and green space. In terms of shared equity, I think that this will be talking about where there might be where a housing association and housing tenant or owner might equally share the property, and therefore there is some the conditions that would normally be applied to 106 agreements are less easy to implement because of the mixed tenure or the mixed ownership conditions.
Thank you, Nicola.
Chair, if I can just add to the comments, yeah. On the Denby site you referred to, without wishing to reopen a long debate that we had over a couple of meetings, both at Cabinet and Scrutiny, over the last 12 months. Just to clarify that obviously we went out on this at a 20% affordable housing level, which obviously is double what the requirement within the LDP currently is, which is 10%, and it was done basically on the market testing of what actually would be able to be delivered and what was viable.
I understand. Very good. 20% is better than 10%.
Yeah.
I must say that. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. And then on page 20, residents satisfied with availability of housing, only 42%. And then numbers on South registered gone up. Is this a risk for the county on that? That only 42% are happy with the availability of housing, and also the other problem, South registered gone up, and it would have gone up because of COVID, of course.
Do you want me to pick this one up, people?
Please, Liz,
yes.
more your remit than anybody else's, so yeah.
Okay. Which page are you on, Alwell? Sorry.
162 in the pack, Liz. Page
162.
Yeah, page 20 of the document.
Yeah. I suppose those two figures are, it's understandable that people are dissatisfied when our waiting lists have increased so substantially over the past 12 months. This is a concern to us for sure, and we're taking a paper to the next strategic housing and homelessness group to drill down into the detail a little bit more. I think if you consider this a useful subject for a future performance scrutiny, then I'd welcome the opportunity to come back with that. Obviously, it's not just Denbighshire Housing that provides social housing. There are a number of RSLs, and we all work together to do what we can. I think probably this figure will be even worse going forward because of issues being compounded over the last 12 to 18 months. We do have a number of new developments in the pipeline, both from Denbighshire Housing and the RSLs, but sadly the waiting lists are increasing at a faster pace than we are able to house people. So I think personally it's a very good subject for a future performance scrutiny.
Certainly. Thank you, Liz, for that answer. Paul Penlin, back with us again with a question.
Sorry, Chair. I was going to suggest we bring this housing issue to a future scrutiny, but Liz beat me to it. Sorry.
Well done, Liz. Well done. Can I go back to the report again? Page 46, which is 188 on the document in front of me here also. There's rather a glib statement about Welsh books. Does that indicate books in Welsh, or books made in Wales, or books about Wales?
I would have to go back and check that one, Harwell. I would imagine that they are Welsh language books.
I would assume that, yeah, but I couldn't confirm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm having trouble with this microphone. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi. Diolch. Right. And one last question from me, unless someone else has got. Mary will come in after me. Not a single tree of the 19,000 planned by Welsh Government for disadvantaged communities yet planted, so they say, in a Denby. Could you give me some information on that for the future? Because it's very important that these trees are planted. I'm sure Graham Timms would agree with me and Brian Jones. The page is that one is page 77.
Thank you. Just take a look at that. Thank you. Sorry, I don't seem to be in the right part of the report.
Is it page 193 that you're referring to, Arwell?
No, it's page 219, and it will come under the climate and ecological change strategy.
Yes, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Chair, can I come back to you about that? Because I'm just struggling to find it at the moment in the report.
Lovely. So we'll go over to one who's outside the committee, and that's Councillor Mary Gloyd Davis now, please. Diolch yn fawr ti.
Thank you once again, Chair. I just wanted a bit of information. Page number 6 in the report, page 141. There are no costs involved with this report. I'm not quite sure whether that's correct. Are they additional costs to the workforce costs, or what are they? And you also mentioned houses. We've been trying to get single floor houses in Trefnant for retired people. How do we go about getting that kind of thing in a report? Thank you. And finally, there are many columns, page 158 and 161. Those are the pages, by the way. 172 and then 191 under environment. So, to XXX tons. There's no reply, and that happens in 4 parts of that report, page 191 and 195. The information to come in June Data due in June. Well, we're in June now. What's happened?
Diolch, Mary.
Thank you. With regards to the first question, costs associated with the production of the report, that is correct. There haven't been any costs, any additional costs to our team for them to create that report. Sorry, you're on mute. I can't hear. I'm sorry. The word additional appears in the report. There are no costs related to, additional is missing. Well, obviously there will be a cost in terms of officers' time and so on, but that is part of our process anyway. There are no additional costs. And the question about housing, I'll ask if Liz could come in on that, please. But before I transfer to Liz, regarding the data on carbon, obviously this report was submitted in May for this meeting. Helen Vaughan Evans and her team are working very hard to try and get that data ready for us by the 15th of June, in time for the report to be submitted to Cabinet and then to full council. So hopefully by then, councillors will be able to see the data. Thank you.
Mind through again, Mayrick. What was your question?
I'm sorry,
about
Mary.
the
What was your
houses?
question again about housing?
Well, I'll give it in English. I can speak that one as well. It's about bungalows in Trefnant. We've been trying to get some bungalows for the elderly in Trefnant because they're a very popular little village. It's got a bus service and all that, but we don't seem to be getting anywhere. Could you assist there, or do I need to make an application to somebody in the council?
Are you're wanting somebody to build houses for older people in Trefnant? Is that the okay?
That's the question. We've got houses, but not bungalows for the elderly. And,
okay. Well,
I noticed in the report, Rill, Trithlan, Ruthin, etc. is all mentioned, but Trefnant is left out actually.
Okay, we're driven very much by the LDP and the needs assessment for housing. So that's a strategic assessment that's done by Angela and her planning team. And those of us who build social housing are very reliant on we need to meet the demand where it's highest. And unfortunately, we're not able to meet all the demand everywhere. So that's pretty much an answer to your question, I'm afraid.
Yes,
I wish I could. I wish I could build everywhere, but unfortunately, my hands are a bit tied.
Thank you, Liz. I can see that Mr. Paul Penlington's hand is up again. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Just a, I don't know if it's a question or a point, really. We've got this information update on complaints and compliments, etc. There's an example of a compliment. Can I suggest in future we have some examples of complaints just to give us an idea of the sort of thing we're dealing with? Please, thank you.
Yeah, I can make that request, but that isn't actually for discussion on the agenda today. That's not part of this report. I'll come to that under the work programme report.
Right, Aggie Paul.
Thank you, Rhian. There's nobody else with their hands up, so we've come to the end of that item.
Excuse me, Chair. Excuse me, it's Nicola Neal here. I just want
the trees.
Yes,
sorry, Nicola.
To come back on that. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah, so I found a place in the report, so thanks for that time. a community orchard has been developed in Denbigh, and there are plans to develop it further. But I do understand from the report that there has been a challenge in Upper Denbigh in order to find suitable land on which to plant more trees. But Countryside Services have tried to address this challenge by adapting outdoor spaces for further planting opportunities. So there is work to address the challenges that have been encountered when trying to increase the planting in Upper Denbigh.
Excellent, excellent. Ardderchog, carry on with the good work there, who are Countryside Services. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Felly,
so we've looked at this and we've accepted the work by Julian and the team.
Propose that we accept the report, please. Diolch Martin, seconded by Councillor Ellie Chard. Diolch yn fawr, all in agreement? Good, diolch yn fawr iawn. We move on now to Scrutiny Work Programme, gwaith y dyfodol I craffu. Atach chi.
Over to you, page 267 to 290. Rhian, please. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the usual work programme. In Appendix 1 on page 275, you will see the work programme as it stands at the moment. Your next meeting will be on the 15th of July in 5 weeks' time. So there's a little less time than usual till that next meeting. There are 2 items down there at the moment. We have the draft sustainable travel plan and the draft Director of Social Services annual report for 2019-20 and 2020-21. You'll recall that the request last year for the social services reports, the government said that there was no need to do that last year because of COVID, because they were busy dealing with that. But there would be a requirement this year. And the requirement is for that report to cover 2 years, the resources and what the improvements they feel they need to do for next year. That report needs to be in the hands of the government by the end of September, I think. So you should discuss that next month. It's going to be quite a bulky report covering 2 years and COVID and everything. So talking about the effects of COVID, the plan on sustainable travel, that has been held back because of COVID, so they won't be in a situation to bring that to you until around November. So if you're willing, moving that to the November meeting and then carrying on with that report on social services on the 15th of July. So we'll only have 1 item next month. And it's a very bulky report. That's what you're saying, is it? Yes, I would think so, because COVID has affected all aspects of the social services work over the last 2 years in a way. And also, I'm sure there will be lessons learnt with moving forward to the future. I accept that 1 item is sometimes sufficient in order to scrutinise it in detail. Are we all in agreement with that? Can you show? Thank you. Also on the agenda next month, we were going to have, but the chair has agreed to move this. It was the Cavendish annual report for the past 2 years. They've asked for this to be postponed until September, so you'll see that on your work programme already for the 30th of September. You mentioned this morning that there may be many items coming from the reports that you've had this morning that will need, especially the performance reports, that maybe you'd like to bring them to scrutiny. If you fill in the form in Appendix 2 and submit it to me as soon as possible, the Chairs and Vice Chairs group will be meeting on the 1st of July. So if I could get the form in next week from anybody who wants to put in a request, then we can ask the Vice Chairs and Vice Chairs group to consider it in July. Already this morning, you've asked for 2 education reports to come back in 9 months' time, so that'll be around March next year. In terms of the information update, a few of you mentioned it this morning. This is a report for information that's being sent to you quarterly, and I'll raise it with Kevin Roberts, who writes that report, and ask whether he can provide examples of complaints as well as praise. In Appendix 3, you have the Cabinet Forward Work Programme, and Appendix 4, you will see progress with committee resolutions. One other thing that was discussed by the Chairs and Vice Chairs group last time was the habit that we used to have before COVID to hold pre-meetings before scrutiny to arrange who asked what. Well, some members feel that those meetings were very useful. The problem we have with virtual meetings is, and there will be elements of every meeting in future. There won't be a time when everybody will be here. We'll have to make arrangements to hold those virtually. And in order to do that on the morning of the meeting, because the chamber is being used for preparation for the main meeting, the chair and myself and anyone else would have to go to another room in County Hall, create a meeting with the members at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that can be no longer than half an hour, so that there's enough of a break to re-establish another meeting at 10. So the Chairs and Vice Chairs group decision was that if you as members feel that it would be beneficial to have one of these pre-meetings, if you could put a request in soon enough to the Chair or Vice Chair, just to enable us to set everything up to hold the meeting and that we can inform everybody. Thank you. So there's a request there for more items to be scrutinised, and also, do you want to hold pre-meetings before the official meeting to discuss what we can ask beforehand? But you must put a request in. That's the request from Rhian. Thank you, Rhian, for the usual report there. We're almost at the end of the meeting now. I have got a few reports because I personally have represented the Scrutiny Committee at 3 meetings. Yesterday, I was part of challenging the legal departments, which Rhian is part of, and the supervision of Gary Williams. A challenge for him. There were 4 members of the cabinet present. Julian was there as one, and only I was the only one who came from the Scrutiny Committee. Nobody from any other scrutiny committees. I had the honour with the chair of Hugh Williams, the chair of communities, to be before 2 members of Estin to get information as to how the county is doing in terms of education. Also, I represent you on SIG. I'm trying to think of investment group. So has anybody else represented this group on any committee?
I've just put my hand up just to inform everybody. I've got it booked down for Monday the 19th of July. I'm the rep on the Education and Children's Services Performance Challenge. Okay?
Great.
And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer holiday, as I always used to say in school. Okay.
Very good, very good. Well, there we are. Danny, you really got fun.
So we're finished. Can I thank everybody who's been part of this meeting today?
Best. I've tried to, but it's very hot here. Thank goodness you are at home and you have more fresh air perhaps around you. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Thank you all.
And also the officers around me here, a'r un sydd wedi cyfieithu hefyd. Diolch Marian. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Thank you, Chair.
Cheers, Arwell. Thank you very much.
Well done, Arwell.